system and help progress workplace safety. IoT in a working environment is one of the most advanced ways to increase safety that a company could implement. It has managed to help companies worldwide by improving working conditions, data collection, streamlining operations, and increasing productivity. IoT devices do not entirely protect workers in risky industries. Instead, they help managers address large numbers of threats that can be prevented. IoT technology allows organizations to monitor environmental conditions, physical health of employees, and can help limit employees' risks and exposure to prevent accidents from happening. IoT technology also ensures long-term workplace safety by analyzing data and using it to develop occupational health and safety strategies for employees. An example would be when IoT tools are integrated with HR and workforce solutions to develop factory workers' schedules that would minimize exposure levels or ensure that workers accurately spread out for 24-hour shifts. Usually, IoT is most synonymous with goods relevant to the idea of a smart home on the consumer market. This involves appliances and equipment such as surveillance systems, cameras, lighting fixtures, other home appliances that can be operated by ecosystem-related devices and serve one or more common ecosystems. But today, our experts will tell us how to improve workplace safety using IoT. I will have the honor to moderate this webinar today, but first, let's speak a little bit, or let me tell you or provide you a short introduction about the UTEC. Well, the UTEC, as most of you or many of you know, is a non-profit organization based in Germany, in Munich, nearby Munich, where basically we are trying to achieve three main goals. In one hand, competitiveness. We are trying to help European companies to increase the competitiveness level, and we are trying to do it through technology and through innovation. On the other hand, sustainability is also one of our main goals. We are trying to help also European companies and even worldwide companies to do business in a more sustainable way of speaking. And of course, following the United Nations SDGs. And last but not least, the growth or the expansion is also one of the main goals of the Chamber. We are trying and we are helping many companies to expand, to join other markets, to be successful abroad through our programs, through our help, through our support, and of course, through our network. The UTEC can be defined also as a very strong networking platform. We have our own tools and our own technology to connect people with people, companies with companies, in some occasions even companies with governments. So we are constantly helping our members to, let's say, increase business leads, increase business opportunities, and in one word, become more competitive, as I mentioned before, is one of our main goals and our main activities. How we do that? Well, as mentioned, we have different, we have at least two platforms, online platforms, in where we are providing solutions to our members, but we also are running some programs like UTEC Center program, like Climate Action Partnership, like finance programs. So we are running different programs, providing different programs for free to our members in order to help them to continue growing, to continue trying to get more and more business, and of course, in the other hand, also trying to do it in a sustainable way and in the way that we consider that the business should be done, not only in Europe, but also in the world. events like the one that we are having today are helping us to increase our network, are helping us to provide knowledge to our network about different topics. Today we are going to speak about IoT, but we are speaking about many other topics like digital transformation, like manufacturing, or like energy, for example. And we are also having presence in different parts of the world, like China, Asia, like Africa or Latin America, not only in Europe. So I will be very happy if later any of you want to have more information about the EUTEC. I will be very happy to receive your inquiries. I will be very happy to meet you, to explain you more insights about the EUTEC, to learn more about your business, and to check if we from the EUTEC can help you guys to develop your business in a better way, in a more efficient way. So saying that, this very short introduction about the EUTEC, I say again, good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today in this EUTEC's IoT Alliance digital event. We are sure it will be very interesting for all of you to have a better understanding of a great topic such as safety at work with the IoT. I invite you all to share with us your questions about this topic. You can write them at the chat of this meeting room. Later, I will pick up some to ask them to our panelists. Please don't wait until the end of the panel to send your questions. You can do it anytime starting now. Since today we only have two speakers, two panelists, I really encourage you to send more and more questions about everything that we are going to speak today about, because we can even make it as a conversation between our experts and you as audience. So please send us your questions and we will be happy to establish or to create this debate and this roundtable together with you as audience. Today, as I mentioned, we are honored with the presence of two great panelists, both of them with huge experience in IoT technology. I am sure they will offer us different points of view about today's topic, sharing with us a great vision about it. Please let me introduce you first of all, Ulf Seichmer, who since the early 90s has built companies and brands around the data exchange between devices, interconnected sensors, machines, and systems that exchange data. System through many use cases and applications. Ulf has worked in sales, marketing, and tech. Through his career, he has worked with various wireless communications technologies, deploying hundreds and hundreds of thousands of devices across the globe. He describes himself as a marketer, tech geek, and customer-focused sales generator, all in one person. Ulf's driving force is curiosity. He has excellent know-how, almost 30 years in the business. In 2012, Ulf wrote an article about 5G. He has since been a keynote speaker at several events and writing more articles on the subject of 5G. And please also let me introduce you Bengt Olsson, CEO of X Ventures Technologies. Bengt started early in his life in the telecom industry when the electromechanic was still working in the telco industry, but the electronic exchange has made entry to the telecommunication world after some few years. He started in Telia industry after high school and started to work with installation of corporate switchboard nodes in Sweden and traveled around for many years. He has been in different positions in this industry as programmer, seller, etc. Later on, he moved to the capital city, Stockholm, and continued working in telco industry at Ericsson. After 10 years in Stockholm, he got an offer from Ericsson in Germany to work as a software tester, and he did that for 4 years until he got an offer to be troubleshooter at product of maintenance department. Then the crisis came to Ericsson and 50,000 engineers have to leave. Bengt was one of those who survived this harsh period. As a troubleshooter in telco and cloud, he was working in many countries, most remotely, but also locally. He traveled around the world, like USA, Canada, Croatia, Hungary, China, Japan. After 15 years with mobile switch system, Ben decided to start with Ericsson cloud system, and there was then he was working until decided to start his own company, X Ventures Technologies. Between all that works, he continued studying at Chalmers University in Gothenburg, KTH in Stockholm, and Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where he studied artificial intelligence and machine learning. So after this brief but very impressive introduction, let's start first with the keynote speeches of each one of our speakers today. We are going to start with Ulf. Ulf, good morning. Thank you for being here. You can start with your keynote speech, with your presentation as soon as you want.
Okay, thank you, Federico, and thanks for the good start of the meeting. So just hang on a second, and I am uploading my presentation. Hopefully you see it. I get nods from at least Federico and Bengt that they can see the presentation. So
Ulf, let me just tell the people. I mean, Ulf right now uploaded his presentation. Maybe you guys, the audience, can see it small. You can make it big. You can make it full size of your screen just by clicking on the right side of the presentation up, right side. Then there is a small click with 4 arrows. If you click there, it will be full size in your computer, so you can see it even bigger. Please, Ulf.
Yes, thank you, Federico. So Federico already introduced me. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer of a company, Induo, and Induo is we're basically a Swedish company that are specialized in IoT devices. So we are providing secure and reliable connections to different kind of verticals and applications. We're based in Stockholm, the capital of Sweden, and our main focus is the Nordics. So today I'm going to elaborate on how IoT can improve worker safety by using new 5G technology. So I'm going to share an example of a test that was performed just a little bit north of Stockholm this year. So we got involved in a project. We were actually invited by an operator, a Swedish operator called Telenor, to contribute with hardware to a project that was initiated by the Forestry Research Institute of Sweden. In Swedish, it's called Skogforsk. And they wanted to understand if IoT could be the future to improve work environment in forestry. And they wanted to launch a test site. So before we talk about what we actually did, let's talk about how the forest is being harvested, because this is a field that they wanted to focus on. So in the good old days, you had a chainsaw that were cutting down the trees, logging the trees, and you had horses driving the logs out of the forest. Today, you have harvesters that are logging the trees, taking the branches off the trees, putting them on the ground. And then you have another machine called forwarder that will pick up the logs and drive it to a nearby road. And they leave it there to be picked up by a timber truck. And then eventually it becomes paper or pallets or whatever you decide to do out of the wood. So in this project, Skogforsk wanted to focus on the working environment in these forwarders. You know, the forwarders are the ones that are picking up the logs and driving them out of the forest. So if you see this slight background here, you understand that when you have harvested the wood, it's a lot of things on the ground. So you have rocks that you cannot see, you have timber on the ground, and you have a lot of obstacles. And when you are sitting in a machine, driving over this kind of terrain, it is a very bumpy ride. So for the drivers of these machines, it's very, very hard on the body. And usually people cannot work throughout their whole work life just driving these kind of machines, because the body, well, it cannot cope with the situation for that many years. So that's a very problematic thing from a worker safety and perspective in the forest. Another problem is that most of these drivers, they're working all alone in the dark forest, and they're working 24/7. So they drive the car out in the middle of the forest, jump into the forwarder, and they are working there all alone. And if something happens, the machine flips over, and cell coverage usually isn't that good in the forest, then they really have a problem to communicate that they're injured. And because this is a very hard work environment, the machinery is very expensive, because the machine has to build around the human being. The human being must be protected. So potentially, if the human being were taken out of the machine, the cost of the machine would go down. And it's also hard to attract the new generation of kids to enter this kind of work and see it as a career moving forward. So that's also a problem that Skogforsk identified that they wanted to address. And through the years, we have been looking at 5G as a solution to the self-driving cars, let's say self-driving tractors, let's say self-driving trucks and so on. Just sitting in front of a computer, in theory, you could self or remote drive a vehicle like this. So that is what they wanted to investigate. Can they take that technology and put it in the forest? The potential would be to have a remote operated forwarder. And then you can take the driver out of the cabin of the forwarder. So you put them somewhere in a shed in a nearby proximity. And by taking the driver out, you can actually run several machines with less drivers, and those drivers could be sitting at the same place, and they could work together and interact with each other. So it's no longer a work that is a very lonely and isolated work. If you take the driver out of the machine, the cost goes down, not only by taking the cabin away. I heard rumors that that is roughly 30-40% of the cost of the machine. You can also reduce the risk of injuries, and you create a completely new work role where you have a driver sitting in front of a computer driving a car remotely instead. They identified one problem, a quite obvious one, and that is that there is no 5G coverage in the dark woods of Sweden, because Sweden is a very long country with a lot of forest in rural environments. So how to find a solution to that? Well, Skogforsk, they investigated the possibilities of a private 5G network. So Telenor, the operator, they set up a private 5G network in the forest using a base station from Ericsson called Industry Connect, running a completely private 5G network that isn't a part of the public networks. And in theory, they could get connection wherever it's needed. And if you look at this image, you see the forwarder, the red machine to the right. And you see on the forwarder that there is an antenna on a boom. This is the part that we help them with. They have a 5G router for private network in this machine, and they have a 5G antenna. And then on the left side, you have a little bit of the antenna base station, which is actually a mobile base station that you can deploy wherever it's needed. And then you have the new driver's cabin, the blue shed. So that's where the drivers are sitting. And this is how it looks. The drivers are sitting in front of computers, and they can see what's happening outside of the machine. And they can see the sides, and they have all sorts of data to the left. Now I'm going to share a video from Skogforsk, and let's just pray to the technology gods that it works. So this is a video that Skogforsk recorded, and I think that this one says more than me speaking for 1.5 minutes. So let's look at the video. So the 5G tests that were performed, they were, first of all, they tested actually with Wi-Fi in the forest, and they didn't really get that kind of performance that they were looking for, so they opted for the 5G base station. And in Sweden, we have the possibility to apply for private 5G frequencies. So in this case, it was in the 3.6 to 3.7 gigahertz range. In the forest, they have a lot of terrain, as you understand. It's logs, it's timber, it's forest, it's mountains. So it was a very, very difficult environment to work in. And that is also why they have to test different antenna placements to get a satisfactory performance. And the test conclusion was that there are a few things that will need to be addressed moving forward. One is that any kind of things operated through a network, they can suffer from latency problem. And latency is the time it takes for a data package to travel from A to B in a network. And if this latency is either long or inconsistent, it's hard to remote control a machine. So in the case of 5G, they didn't suffer from that long latency problems at all. But if there was a package drop, it could be problematic when they were on the edges of the network. Also, the coverage in rough terrain, forest isn't that much of a problem. Mountains are. So using these high frequencies need to be addressed by probably a more powerful base station that they already have identified. But these are just minor things that they can deal with. So the conclusion is that IoT probably within a couple of years will be seen in many, many different kind of areas in the forestry industry. And in the meantime, we need to look at how can we solve the coverage in the forest. And although it hasn't really been tested yet, we believe that one idea is to combine both the 5G networks, the private 5G networks, and radio frequencies. So the 5G could easily address the machines when they are very nearby. And when you get out to the edges of the networks where the 5G technology could have some kind of data loss, there we could use a private radio network for the control signals, so that the control signals are always on a system that has a longer range than the 5G, and the 5G will be used closer to the 5G base station. So my belief is that IoT can really improve work life in the forest. This is a game changer, and it will have a large impact not only on the forest industry, but also on the construction industry, for example, where you can remote control similar heavy machinery using just 5G technology. And the benefits are obvious. I mean, this is a no-brainer, as I think, because it's beneficial both to health and to the overall cost of the system. And I'm sure that in these kind of applications, IoT will really make a change. And to me personally, I believe that that is very important. I want to participate in projects where we as human beings can really gain from IoT and put systems on the market that really will make a change. So that was all for me.
Thank you so much, Ulf, for this impressive and very nice presentation, also the video. Thank you so much. Now, I will take the control of the screen and I will start to share Ben's presentation. Let me check what it is. Here it is. Ben, remember to tell me when to pass from one slide to another, okay? And because I will not be watching you, I only will be watching my full screen with your presentation. So you just let me know next slide or whatever, and I will pass it, okay?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, I am sharing already the screen, and please let me know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can see the screen, yes.
Okay, again, as I said before for Ulf's presentation, you guys can click on the 4 arrows and make it full size in your computer screens to watch it, let's say, in a better way. So, Bengt.
Thank you, Federico, and thank you for the presentation. I will give a presentation of how the worker can be protected from dangerous areas, to have a controlling of the environment where they go into. And IoT can be very useful in these cases because we have full control of electricity and environment. And example, you have a dangerous zone, equipment, you have to be controlled in a manner way that people can work in safely. And with our IoT platform, we can have a summarized outprint where the data can be collected. And you see at the left side, you have a load. You see the current amperes, how many load it is. If some people go into that area of the load area, power station. So if they want to work there, some equipment, the operator from IoT platform can tell to the people on the ground that system can be switched off while they are working on the equipment, to use to protect the people. And also they have working people have an application as well, so they can see exactly what they're working with. If it is a high voltage, a lot of amperes, a lot of power, a lot of other substances, so can be dangerous for them while they in that dangerous area. And IoT can be very useful in this case. At the left side on down, you see the voltage, the bus voltages of every connectivity, and you see the different kind of from 300 up to 400 volts. That can be dangerous for anyone. But we can switch off these switches, and so people can work in safely and redistribute these switches to other areas. And on the left side, or right side, sorry, you see all the data from the engine speed, oil pressure, coolant temperature. It can be important because people want to get the hot water on it, or hot liquid on it, so they know exactly what the temperature of it. And also the pressure, the steam can also be very dangerous. It can be only boiled if you get the steam on you when you're working in this area. And you have also the generated voltages on the right side, and see how much power there in the every switches. they are very useful to have this kind of information, because if they want to work with the different switches, the protection can be made by collecting this information. So they know exactly when it switch it off and not switch it off. By operator can do that manually from a platform. Next slide, please, Federico. Yeah, this is a company who was in Germany, in Netherlands, and we have some information for this. Little bit more, Federico. Next slide, please. Yeah, here we have generated powers, the data of each switches, and when a date when it occurred, this kind of voltages or kilowatt hours we see here, and then we can also, when it switched off these switches, we see exactly when it happened, date and minute and so on. So the people can be secure that when people work in this area, they're completely safe when they work on the equipment, just for the safety and protect the people in this area when they working with this dangerous equipment. Next slide, please. Yeah, and then we have the voltage of the generator. This is also the progress of the generator as well. So you see that the electrician know that it's generated working properly. One is in the equipment area, and it's not dangerous to be there, because when you enter into this areas, you can show in before that generator is working normally and not should cause any kind of dangerous issues while the person in other is in the area. Because if you go into the generator area where the equipment running unstable, it can be very dangerous for the persons or several persons. It can be a group of people who work in there, and then can be dangerous or deadly injury. So it's important to know that if the equipment working properly, it's behaved correctly, we can go in there safely. And we also see voltages, is this normal or is above the threshold? If it's above the threshold, we get a warning of that as well. Thank you. Next slide, please. We see also the generated current. We see that this also behavior correctly with the data. We see also the date when it occurred, did not measure. We see also the value of the current. That is, we have a datagram. You can see how its behavior. You see, current is about 60 ampere, and it is normal, as it's not. You have a peak of 100, something like that. That can be dangerous if you go in there and behave unstable. So we see every details of the performance of the generator. That is also important for people who work in there. I can protect also the complete environment and also the for other equipment, and also the group of people who work in there. And this save a lot of money if you can see all details from this graphic information. Because if there's some behavior of the generator, you have to stop immediately and repair it until the company lost a lot of money of equipment failure. Next slide, please. Here we have a process regurgitator. This is the process industry. We're in the process industry of regurgitator. You can see all details in the flow. And each of the flow we can switch off if it's unexpected behavior, who people who work in there in the area, who want to save the equipment status, and also improve the performance as well if it's not behaving correctly. The probable performance of the equipment can be money changer for the government, for the company, because then the machine or the refrigerator doesn't behave correctly, and when you have all data of refrigeration data, it will be safe for the engineer and the electrician who work with equipment. It's not surprising dangerous issues for the processes, and we can also switch off these compressor or condenser, whatever. We can redistribute to the other areas of it. That is important for people who are working with equipment, so that they protect the people and they protect the environment, and also they protect the money for the company as well. Next slide, please. We have here operation status, and here we have all details about the compressor. Sorry, refrigerator, and you see all details. You have, for example, oil pressure. You have a temperature, discharge temperature, oil temperature, discharge superheat, condenser, and running hours. If, for example, if you stop it, this equipment has been stopped in some way, we can see that in running hours, how many hours it's running and why you stop it. That we can find the data for that. And also you see the capacity of the piston, and then also see the RPM speed. This is important for safety, because if it's not running properly, we can see it in RPM, and you can also see in the piston capacity if it's low capacity, and this is protecting people to while they work and it's not breaking down or something that can cause a lot of injuries. And that is beneficial for the IoT. Like we see all that we can measure everything in the process industry. We can see why it is not working properly and how we can prevent it to the system fail out. Next slide, please. And we see also the system status. How many temperature in the equipment, and how we can prevent if it's going up and or it's too low in refrigerator. That's important to save money and also save life when you have these kind of processes. It can be very dangerous. You have this big industry compressing system. There are many people who work in the area. It can be hundreds of people, because this is not a small system. This is quite big industry equipment. It can be big like a house. And it's important to have all data valued and estimated that the the equipment working correctly. Next slide, please. And we have also the compressor status and details of the temperature, and everything is simply working fine. And we have, if you get into up and down of a threshold, we get a warning, and you can see it immediately. That also, and this is the information you can get from before we get entry into the compressor. That is very important, that we have all this information during the repairing or analysis or inspection, so we can save life and prevent people get injured for sure. Next slide, please. This another topic, how IoT can prevent virus. Why we should and similar virus like COVID, and how we can prevent to spread it around in the society. For example, in airport, in hotel, you have restaurants, you have special restaurants, and many people can get food poisoned. I read some days ago there was a group of people who was food poisoned in a restaurant, and there was 10 people, and then 8 of them landed in the hospital. And it can also happen that if we have a problem in the restaurant, or people not cleaning correctly, we can see when people went out and of the toilet, and how often they clean it of the toilet as well. This prevents a lot of virus spreading and infection around the society. It's very important that right now we have a COVID for 2 years, and not continue with the next 3rd or 4 years. That we have everything under control with IoT, and IoT can make a lot of data collection in this area and prevent that virus spreading and people dying and they get infection all of the society. Thank you. That was the end of the page.
Thank you. Thank you, Bengt, for this also for this presentation. Let me here, and thank you so much. I can see that the keynotes are already finished, so let's go directly now to the panel discussion, and we are starting with a question for Ulf. Of course, you guys, please discuss, debate a little bit. I mean, the questions are for each one of you, but you can, of course, debate about them together. So, Ulf, thank you again for your keynote, for your presentation. What was the biggest problem with the 5G signal in the forest you have been speaking about before?
Yeah, so the problem is that when you have a very high frequency, in this case it's 3.6 gigahertz, it's a frequency that is much higher than we have in other rural cellular systems or mobile systems in Sweden. And you know, we're a country where we have a lot of rural areas with very little infrastructure and a lot of forests and a lot of mountains. So the problem was to find a good spot to oversee the mountains. And when there was some obstacle in between the radio antenna and the receiving antenna, they dropped some of the data transfer, and that's when it got problematic. The thing is, when you're controlling this machine, and I think you still see the image that it's has a very long boom, and when that boom is extracted at its fullest length, it travels quite fast when you move it around. So the data stream has to be very, very even and without interference.
Thank you, Ulf. Question for Bengt. Bengt, why we need security rules and how can IoT helps?
One of the reasons that why we need security rules, for example, in process industry, as a large heavy equipment, and many people working around this equipment, and therefore they need rules how to get into this equipment for the maintenance of the equipment, and to save life, we need IoT collect information while when they went entry to the for example cooling system or refrigerator system while the process industry, that they are safe while they are in the big equipment. So not cause any deadly injuries, boiling or high pressure or what you talk about more about the temperature changing in the equipment and so forth. That IoT can help a lot. You can have a totally control of the equipment while the person going to. That would need rules for that.
I mean I share your thought, Bengt, because I also know, you know, like power grid stations and so on, you know, usually out in Sweden, it's out in the forest somewhere, and there is one guy normally that drives out there if it is a problem, and in the middle of the night, and in these kind of situations, of course, and these are not just in the power grid, but throughout the industry. It's really important to have the capability to remote control and to understand what's going on.
Yeah. There's many accidents and with the deadly outcome in the process industry where they have not control of the process. Then they have get the steaming cloud on them, and then they get completely boiled. And normally is it 100% deadly injuries of his or outcome. That's a problem.
Thank you, guys. One more question. I just, before the next question, I just want to remember and to remind the audience, you can write your questions at the public chat here in this room, and I will read them when you share them with us. Please do it as soon as you want. One more question for Ulf. Ulf, what is the future for 5G in similar applications?
Well, I think that there is a lot we can do. My office is located really nearby a construction site, and during the days I look out the window and I see all these machines that are driving in very rough terrain, and also from an efficiency perspective, those lorries, they're just driving up to a point where an excavator will fill up the lorry with gravel, or a dump truck with gravel, and the driver is just sitting in that machine for maybe half an hour doing nothing. And I can imagine that if you had these drivers sitting in a shed nearby, it would be better work environment for them, and also not all these long waiting periods. So I think that from an efficiency and work perspective, there's a lot we can do.
Great. Question for Bengt. Bengt, can IoT help with COVID and similar infections?
Yeah, one of them is cleaning of the toilet status, as I showed in the presentation. Another thing we can do is to measure the temperature in the public office, a public area, for example, in hospitals, in airport, with the very sensitive temperature measuring equipment. And if a person coming down with a fever, we can see immediately on the screen that some people have high temperature on the head. So maybe they have a COVID or other infection. This is I read for some month ago that this they practice in Japan airport. So they have detection of the temperature. They measure the in a group or people who pass by the sensors, and they can see if you have people who have higher temperature. If it's fine, some people they take the person down out the side and they measure the temperature manually. It's very efficient, because they have seen a lot of people who have a fever, not a COVID, but they have some other infections, and they can see that the person needs a hospital treatment or other. So it's efficient. It's because in practice in many places, one of them in Japan.
Great. That's great news for all of us, I have to say. Question for Ulf. Are there other alternative technologies that can be used like Wi-Fi instead of the technologies you already have been speaking about? You are on mute, Ulf.
Sorry. Yeah, well, potentially Wi-Fi could be used, but I think that I'd say the problem with any technology that uses unlicensed spectrum is that you can never guarantee that it's going to work. So that is the main question, is not so much just the technology, but using a spectrum that is protected from other users. And we're also seeing tests being carried out, and there will be more results revealed during the summer, where they are doing tests with the public 5G networks, and they're seeing a very good results, remote controlling different kind of mining machines and other heavy equipment. But the thing with Wi-Fi, I would say, is that it has an unlicensed spectrum, and personally, I would avoid that.
Great. We have, Ulf, we have a question from Ilknur. And first of all, he thanks for both presentations. And he said the forestry use case is particularly compelling. At the same time, what comes to mind is if there is could be any environmental impact the high capacity 5G network may have. Anything? Sorry, Ilnur is a she. Sorry for that. Ilnur says is asking about the impact about the 5G network in the forest. Something to say, Ulf?
No, yeah, sure. Sorry, Bengt, I think you should mute. Yes. So I would put it this way: I haven't seen any studies, and this is quite early still. But these are very local networks, and I think the benefits in driving more efficiently in the forest, in not having to stand still and wait, and I mean, my hope is that you take the cost of the driver out from the machine, and instead you put some electrical means to power the vehicle instead, so you can end up getting rid of the cost for designing the cabin for the driver, and then you put in some kind of electric vehicle platform instead in this kind of machines, and you get a more positive impact on the environment. I think that at this point, I haven't unfortunately seen anyone investigating how much power these base stations will consume.
Thank you, Ulf, and thank you, Ilnur, for your question. Please, to the audience, if you have questions, please share it with us. We will be happy or the experts will be happy to answer them. Question for Bengt. Bengt, can IoT survey workers in dangerous working environment?
Yes. We discussed this on the last group meeting. Is it two things we have to think about? We come to the survey of the workers in the dangerous areas. That is certainly GDPR rules. When they measure the people or survey the people in engineers or technicians in the area where they're working, we have to see that the ID can be located to the person because of the GDPR rules in Europe. The second is that we can use the technology, call it virtual VR technology. Then we can see exactly where the person is located in, for example, in steaming machine or power machine or power engine, and it can be guided by the personnel. So this will be injuries while the person is working on equipment. Yeah, we can, and also if a group of people, we can see that how they're moving also in the group, so that we can see they're not going when into the area when it's a high pressure of the system or high steaming or other voltages, currents, so they can be protected from that area. That they can use in the survey. But we have to be careful when the survey is when it's ongoing, and also for during the process. This is important.
Thank you, Bengt. Right now, since we are not having more questions from the audience, I just want to ask you both any final points or any final message you would like to send to address of whatever we have been speaking today about the security in working places related to IoT. Ulf, what would be your final message, your final statement about this topic?
Yeah, my final topic is, final conclusion, I would say, is that there are so many situations where we can benefit from IoT, and I'm talking a little bit like I would be interested in just connecting everything using IoT hardware and so on. And I get that question a lot as we are a supplier of hardware. But my take on this is that, to me, I think what matters is that we really get devices deployed that will make a change for the mankind, for humanity, and to meet this again Agenda 2030 goals that we have. Let's focus on the applications that really make a change. There are very cool IoT applications like the connected hairbrush that tells you what to use as a shampoo next time when you take a shower. But I'd rather ask you to focus on other applications that can really make a change.
I have to say, for me as a non-expert in this field, it's like magic, you know, what kind of shampoo to use or whatever. But I have to say, this in my opinion, or let's say, or listening to you guys, it looks like this is our near future, right?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So that's great. Technology should help us, should help mankind, and with people like you, with experts like you, this will be easier. Bengt, any final statement, any final conclusion from your side?
I would say that IoT is a fantastic equipment and tool where you can see for the companies and also the big companies, you can see all processes all around the world in every factory, what's ongoing, and it save environment, and save properties, it save people's energy, it save a lot of unneeded work we was done before in the past, are not needed anymore, and we can save a lot of money, and we can save a lot of equipment, and we save the planet as well.
One question that suddenly came to my mind, because I also had this question in some of my networking group meetings in manufacturing and this and that. What do you guys think, or what would you guys say to those people that is saying that, well, with all these technologies, the people will lose their jobs, the people will, I mean, is this those technologies taking the jobs for people, or are those technologies helping people to do their jobs more efficiently? What do you think about that? I mean, both of you.
When I studied, there was that rumor that they say that people who using AI and technology and machine learning will put on people off to work, but it's not true. This new work will be created in past of this technology. For instance, my company, working together with a company in Austria, Radiolab, and together with the mesh network and IoT network, we can share the data to the platforms. And when the building of the network will improve the workforce, because we need the people who set out these routers and servers and equipment around the cities, and a lot of create a lot of work. And also, when they're using the network, people can use the efficient system, and more business will come up depending on the technology. So more work will come with the technology, I would say.
Ulf, any comment on that, or you are on mute? We cannot hear you. You're on mute. You know. Okay. Maybe you're facing a problem with the sound? Yes. Okay. Then no worries. No worries. Let's see. Okay. Okay. I understand. So thank you anyway. So anyway, we are finishing this very interesting webinar today. We are finishing it a little bit earlier. That's why Jörg Tuchen is not here to provide you the present and the gift that we used to provide to all our speakers at our webinars at the EUTech. Of course, you, both of you, Bengt and Ulf, you will receive your free certificate, as most of our EUTech followers know. And for those that is the first time joining this kind of event, I can tell you guys that every time that we organize a webinar, once a day, in occasions twice a day, we, as a present, we give, or we plant a tree in Africa for each one of our speakers in order to reduce CO2 emissions in the world, in order to reforest the world, and to help and to support climate action activities. And of course, this is also happening today, even though right now I cannot provide you, or I cannot show a tree certificate. Later, I am sure Jörg will send it to you by email, to both of you, Bengt and Ulf. And yeah, I can see that Ulf, also the camera is not working anymore. Ulf, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. I'm here, and there's my camera. So sorry, the computer is stuck, so I couldn't say anything. But you were talking about if IoT will take away jobs from people, right? That's when I left off. You know, I heard this story that I want to share as well. That in Asia, they have problems with attracting young people to work at construction sites, because they basically don't want to work 8 to 12 hours just carrying heavy stuff and driving these machines in a dusty environment and so on. So they have problems attracting the workforce of the young people to these heavy work situations where it's it's hard on the body and so on. So they are coming up with more and more systems where they use modern technology instead. So people will sit in front of a computer and do something, and then it's easier to attract the young people. So I don't really see that we're taking away jobs from someone. It is a digitalization shift in the market, and we just have to look at what's happening and follow that path. Another example from Sweden and the forest industry is the trucks that picks up the logs and drives them to the sawmill, for example. They have problems attracting the drivers because they have to sit in a crane above all the timber, and it's very high up. It's unprotected, and it's usually done when it's dark, rainy, snowy, and so on. And instead, they decided to put a virtual reality headset and a joystick to the driver, so they can sit in the lorry or the truck and just load the logs on the back using VR and wireless technology. And then that role became very popular. But when they had this analog crane sitting high up in the air in a cold and snowy environment, no one wanted to drive these cars or trucks. So it's a shift, and we just have to find out new ways to solve problems.
Yeah, thank you, guys, and really amazing share this panel discussion with you. As I said, later Jörg Tuchen will provide you or send you the tree certificate to both of you as a little present in the name of the UTech. And well, to our audience, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you liked and enjoyed this session. Please join us at our LinkedIn IoT Alliance group, and we hope to see you soon at our next events. And remember, as always, technology obliges. Thank you so much, and take care. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Federico, for moderating.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.